Hey folks, welcome to the Almond Landscape YouTube channel. Our goal is to help you be better landscape designers, contractors, business people, retaining wall builders in this case. I'm going to talk about retaining wall principles, do's and don'ts. I just ran up the hill, I'm out of breath. I'm in Invermere, British Columbia, here at an Airbnb, and I'm going to show you this retaining wall. Oh, interesting, that's why. Okay, we'll go from here. Okay, basic principles of retaining walls, starting out with okay, rookie move there. Basic retaining wall principles: drainage, critical. Embedment, critical. That's the amount of block that goes below grade. Considering what the load is, if any. In this case, we're having live load. Live load is something like a vehicle or even pedestrian traffic, tractor might pull on there, whatever. Something moving, something static load like a house, right? Something that's just going to sit there, giant boulders. More wall above, like a surcharge wall, or like a surcharge rather. That's called surcharge. Trying to get a lot of video done here in a short amount of time because my ride's here. But surcharge is like the weight of that van above the retaining wall, right? That's live load. That would be a surcharge as well. Slope above the wall, that's also surcharge. That would be a static load. So we got to take all these things into consideration. So what we've got here is embedment in the retaining wall. This is important. What that prevents and reduces, one of the things anyways, is adds to stability of the wall. But like my foot sitting on top of the ground here, if that retaining wall block was just on top of the wall of the soil, my foot can, if my foot were a block, just slide off. But imagine if my foot were buried up to my shin or up to my knee or up to my thigh, however, engineering might require that. That helps this wall resist lateral pressure. Also keeps it more stable in other ways too. So you can see here something we've got going on is it doesn't look like there's much embedment. So this is another problem. So as erosion happens and things like that too, we end up running into issues with it being underneath or undercut by erosion, time, whatever. But again, this block is more prone and more easily susceptible to being just pushed out, right? So that's not good. We would want, the general rule of thumb is 1 course of block below grade or 10% of the wall height, whichever is greater. Now, one other thing with this too is drainage backfill. And this is a short wall, but the entire backfill of this retaining wall needs to be an angular, clean stone. Some of this is a little rounded. It's Canadian. I don't know what's going on here really, but but this is pretty close to a number 57 gradation size stone, angular. So it's a great backfill for the wall. It doesn't hold water back here. That makes the wall more prone to blowing out or bowing or leaning because that water is very heavy. And also it lubricates the soil and allows it to push more easily on the wall. So we want all that water out of here. Also freeze thaw is an issue too. So we want to, at least the standard is 1 foot, and not technically this is 1 foot, but 12 inches of clean stone backfill with the top, depends on the specifier, but 8 to 12 inches of an impermeable cap over top of this of impermeable soil or impervious soil. We'd also want to swale this behind here. So all this water coming down here would be in a ditch like this and be directed out and around back of the wall each side. There might be a drain pipe in here. That's generally required by spec. And that drain pipe would be at the bottom of this clean fill zone with the cap of soil or gravel on, or like a dense grade soil on top of it, graded so that surface drainage hits this and goes around the back of the wall. We don't want that retaining wall we don't want all that drain stone to have to work. The idea is it to be a dry backfill zone, not holding extra weight and not being lubricated, the backfill soil by water. Okay, one thing I thought was interesting with this too, and again, Canadian product, I'm not familiar with this manufacturer, but I thought, well, ideally the caps, we like to see them have a little bit of a reveal so they stick out over the edge a little bit. I'm like, well, I don't know, who knows why some things happen the way they do. Well, what do you know? And by the way, look at this funny situation here. I don't know what that's about, but what is interesting is the way this cap system is a tongue, well, not really tongue and groove, but it's got a lip. And so that does force it to have that, I guess you'd consider that a negative reveal. So it would be the cap is set back on purpose. Each of the block, I'm anticipating or assuming, has this same lip on each one of them, unless that's a top course block, which I don't like those generally because that adds to complexity of the retaining wall system. And one thing we want in all construction is simplicity. Not have to order multiple different types of material and all that kind of stuff. That's something we want to avoid. Okay, so here we can see a failing timber wall. asking a lot of this timber wall, these little timbers, not a lot of mass to them, no geogrid of course. So they're failing and kind of doing their thing. We've tried bolstering them with some trees and other stuff, and it gets by for the time being, whatever. Let's look down the side of this block. Well, now we can't lift it up because it's on there. Now we did cap in this little thing here. Yeah, we got all sorts of stuff going on here, but I'm not familiar with the system, but each piece, you can see that little caps, little tongue and groove cap there. That's really interesting. I don't know if each course is like that or not. I'm gonna bet that they are, and whatever. So interesting system there. I do like that they did a split face wrapping this corner. We didn't do that up here. We really like to see a split face all three sides, or I'm sorry, both sides, and even if it's gonna be exposed on the backside, we do like to see that backside split off, but that all adds cost to the wall. And so just depends on how you're selling this project. And so with this being an Airbnb, cost is super important, I'm sure. And I was scared I wasn't recording there. I thought, oh man, all this yammering for nothing. But cost is super important. So, you know, it's an important conversation to have with your clients. What level of detail are we looking for? And so some companies, you know, like, this is our standard. We do not do anything but, and our prices reflect that. Or, hey, we have a conversation with the client. We don't care about all the frills and extra little things. Because again, I would love to see this side of this block split off. And so we had this split face look all the way around. And that would be just a really nice, clean, you know, appropriate finish. So it's split face all sides. Anyhow, when it comes to engineering, you know, talk to your local manufacturers. They'll have some recommendation charts as far as how much geogrid and those kind of things you might need. In these kind of cases where we got vehicles coming right up in there and pushing, I would prefer to see like a large format block, like some really large outcropping, like stuff the size of that trash can just sat in here, and it's going to hold up things like vehicles, especially a car that pulls in here and turns into this thing like that and puts all this pressure on this little wall. So again, this is all hardscape purism or puristic construction concepts, but still the basics and the minimums that we must adhere to are embedment, clean drain stone, a good footing or a good leveling pad as they call it, which is the stone that the block sits on. We have other videos here on the YouTube channel talking about how to get that level and laid out proper and all that, so check that out further in the channel here. Whatever, but that being said, drainage being super critical, compaction super critical. When the way we backfill this retaining wall, we want to make sure this wall, any bit of loose material, loose soil back here is compacted, so there's no settling, no movement. So, and even really with poured walls, like this poured wall ought to have a huge column of clean drain stone behind us here, behind it. Whether or not they get that, that's debatable, but that would be, again, the ideal thing. From Invermere, Canada, British Columbia, check out hardscapeacademy.com. Fall training dates for in-person trainings in November of 2025 are released now at www.thehardscapeacademy.com. Check it out there, folks. We'll catch you on the next one. We'll see you.